everyone, Reverend Deanna Cox here with our midweek reflection for this 5th week of Lent. Sorry I'm a few minutes late getting the live up, but I was trying to search out someplace warm. It's these first few days of spring are not really feeling very spring-like. But anyways, we're here. We're ready to go. This week, the theme is, as always, we're looking for love. And in this week, the focus is looking for the liberator. The scripture is the raising of Lazarus. And so we're going to talk today about how that story shows us how to unbind ourselves from the from whatever is holding us back from a deep relationship with God, and also how love can free us and open us to engage the world with our whole selves. And it's actually interesting because on Sunday we had the opportunity to watch the movie Jesus Revolution, and it actually is quite similar to the story of Lazarus in that the doors of the church were thrown open wide and invited people who were vastly different in. Some people thought they smelt, much like how Mary was worried when Jesus said, open the tomb, because Lazarus had been in there for 4 days, that he might be a bit smelly. So if you haven't watched the movie, I'll try not to spoil it for you, but it is set in the late 60s, and the church was in decline. They weren't in kind of a similar situation. They hadn't, they didn't know what to do. The folks that were still coming to church didn't like what was happening in the church, aka they didn't like that the numbers were going down and it was getting harder to meet ends. And they also didn't like what was happening outside the church, which happened to be the hippie movement at that time. And it just so happens that the lead pastor had told his teenage daughter that if she found him a hippie, if God brought a hippie to him, that he would talk to him. And lo and behold, it did work out that he came home one evening and his daughter had found him a hippie to talk to. In particular, one who was like preaching the gospel. And so they started talking and found some things that resonated with each other. And so the pastor threw open the doors of the church and invited this fellow and his friends to come and worship with them. Well, I won't divulge all the things that happened, but I'm sure you can imagine what happens when we throw open the doors or burst or remove the rock of the tombs and invite somebody who is radically different than ourselves into worship with us. And so this is kind of that powerful message that this story has for us, that if we dare to believe that God is at work in our world, not just that God existed, and the United Church Creed says we believe in God who has created and is creating. And this worship series, and actually some of the other things that our physical churches are working on right now, has really kind of driven home, at least for me, the second part of that is creating. God is still at work in us and in our world. And sometimes I think we've forgotten that. And that so we have to believe that God is still active in the world. And in this passage, Jesus was starting to set up his followers for the fact that he wasn't going to be around forever. He knew that what he was teaching was upsetting people. Unconditional love, and that that is for everyone, is quite a radical thought, and was making the leaders at that time, and I'm sure would still make the leaders of our time, uneasy. And so Jesus knew that he was on borrowed time, so to speak, because the leaders were getting upset with him because he was disrupting their cozy lifestyle. He was disrupting the norms, and think of the things in our world that have disrupted our norms. I know in the church, I remember growing up hearing about discussions about when inclusive language came in and how that was disrupting people's norm. I know in our church back in they said the first ordained woman in 1936, that disrupted a norm. In 1988, when we decided to ordain anyone regardless of their sexual orientation, that disrupted a norm. And when we realized the harm that residential schools had caused, and we apologized, that disrupted a norm. And so I think we're at a point again where the norm is going to and needs to be disrupted, and it's hard. And so we can find some comfort in the story of Lazarus, because Jesus knows that disruption is hard. And so he was very intentional to show them the power that he can bring to their lives. And so we hear in the story that Martha and Mary, and Lazarus was their brother, that Lazarus was really sick, and they had called on Jesus, and he says, no, I'm busy, I can't go. And that was upsetting and hurtful for them. But he had a purpose, I think. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it says in the scripture that he waited 2 more days. So, and by the time he got there, the sisters told him that Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. So I think the purpose was, if someone was sick and he made them feel better, yes, that is miraculous and wonderful. But if someone has been dead for 4 days and Jesus says, roll open the tomb, no, it's gonna be fine, trust me, roll open the tomb. You told me that you believed, so believe me and roll open the tomb. They do that, and Jesus says, after a prayer to God, he says, Lazarus, come out. And he does, dragging and shedding his funeral shroud. He comes out and has new life. And so in this time, when Jesus knew that he didn't have long left with them, and he knew that the people were going to need a very powerful story to help them hold on to their belief, that's what he did. He gave them this amazing resurrection so that when his time came, maybe they would believe that his resurrection was possible. And so for us today, it's affirming that this, it also still is a powerful story for us to hold on to our faith in hard times. it's also this reminder that new life is possible in the most barren or desolate places. And we are doing a book study right now on turning ourselves inside out. And that's partly why I chose this room, is I have a little centerpiece set up, and I have a cactus and this little angel with her arms open. And the cactus to me shows, even if you want to Google a desert in bloom, is phenomenal to see the difference where a place that looks like there is no life, when it finally does get water, it just bursts forth with life and color. And so this cactus is a reminder for all of us that new life is possible even in the most barren places. And this angel with her open hands is a reminder that grace is ours, and also that to be open to God at work in our world. Because, as I said at the beginning, God didn't just create the world. God continues to create and move and be active in our world and in our lives if we are open to it. And curious. We can't just assume that God works in a certain way. We have to be curious to see how God is going to work in this time and place. And then that freeing, that openness also allows us to let go of all the dead weight that we are carrying, and to open our hearts to share the fullest of ourselves and share that love that we have with the world. And so, yeah, that's some of the things that I was thinking about with this passage and this series, looking for the liberator, that which frees us and opens us to new life. And one of the things that we are doing to share that love into the world, to share maybe a gift of liberation, is we are partnering with a school in the Elk Island School District that it's a small classroom for Indigenous students that are in care and have experienced complex trauma. So very vulnerable people, and trying to give them the gift of a book, because we know how the gift of being able to read opens many doors, and we know how the gift of something that is yours, that you can carry with you, how much that can be cherished. And so there's 8 students in this class, and the books, it's a novel study that they're doing, and I know the teacher, and she is doing wonderful things with these students, and we hope to partner more with them. If you are interested in making a donation to go towards these books, you can, if you come to our physical worship, you can certainly make an in-person donation that way. Or if you do e-transfer, in the description is the email where you can send the e-transfers, and be sure to mark them in the notes section. Be sure to note that it is for Books for the Ranch, and that's the name of the classroom, is the Ranch Learning Center. So Books for the Ranch, if you're e-transferring, or if you want to send a check and just make a little note, in the memo line, Books for the Ranch. And the books themselves are about $22, but we're just accepting all donations, as I know they will be put to very good use. And we can share the love of reading and the gift of opening new doors to imagination, wonder, and possibility, as we are trying to open our own doors to wonder and possibility that is around us. So friends, that is our midweek reflection for this week. Thank you for being present with me. May God be present with you as you go about your day. Take care. Bye.